A lot of people ask me about free image tracers, so I decided to make this video here and tell you which free image tracer works best for you. So I tested and compared some of them and narrowed them down to the built-in image tracers of Affinity and Inkscape and a solution that works in your browser called VTracer by VisionCortex. I know there are a lot of online image tracers, but some of them require you to either pay to download your result or creating an account. And most of them are either based on PoTracer or VTracer, so VTracer is open source and is truly free without requiring you to create an account. You can also download command line versions from their GitHub page to run them locally, but on their website you have a graphical user interface, so there's no need to worry in case you're afraid of text. So let's find out which of them works best. The big advantage of image tracing in Inkscape or Affinity over VTracer, of course, is having access to all the other vector tools you might need to manually refine the trace and to further process the result in your work. And honestly, the easiest to use is the one from Affinity. It's a bit weird to access since you have to open the vector dropdown on the very top and then select Image Trace. I would rather prefer having it in the top toolbar like in Illustrator or being able to select it from the context menu when right-clicking. The big catch, however, is that you don't have a lot of room for adjustments since you only have those two sliders. So if you don't get a good result right out of the box, there is little you can do. A lot of image tracers usually give you options for adjusting the color palette of the trace, which is missing in this case. But you can try achieving this effect by using the posterize filter in Affinity. Just don't forget to hit merge so the filter gets rasterized, otherwise it won't work. Which makes this process destructive, so every time you notice you would like to try the tracing with a different level of posterization, you need to undo it and apply the filter again with a different setting. Also, I sometimes experience crashes when using Affinity's image tracer. VTracer is also pretty easy to use. You just have to drag and drop the image and then play around with the different settings and download the SVG when you're done. The sliders on the top control the amount of colors and individual vector shapes, and the bottom settings control the type of the vectors and further adjust their shape. You can also switch between colorful and monochrome tracing. Also, you can control whether the vectors should be stacked or cut with each other. If you trace a single graphic, you should choose stacked, as it ensures you don't get any weird gaps in your result, and it will create more efficient vectors by separating them by colors and not make a lot of individual islands. The cutout option is pretty useful when vectorizing an atlas containing multiple icons or graphics. I would still recommend to open its results in Inkscape or Affinity and then inspect the vectors and adjusting them further manually if required. So overall, the best balance between ease of use and quality is achieved by using VTracer and then refining the results in Affinity or Inkscape, while Affinity is probably the software that will feel more intuitive than Inkscape. If you prioritize quality, I would recommend using the image tracer of Inkscape. Inside Inkscape, you can just access the image tracer by choosing it from the context menu when right-clicking an image. And once you've opened the tracer, it will automatically adjust to the image you have currently selected. It has multiple modes, including single color, multicolor, and pixel art tracing, which each have their own set of different algorithms you can choose from. And of course, you also have multiple sliders to adjust the tracing and even a toggle to activate user-assisted trace, where you can use another vector object as a sort of mask for the trace. In the panel itself, you also have a preview of the trace, but keep in mind that it won't be affected by the options in the details panel. And in some rare cases, the preview was totally different than the result. Regarding the settings, the top settings are depending on the algorithm or detection mode you're using and are explained in the tooltip when hovering over them. In the details panel, you have the speckles slider, which will clamp some of the colors together to get rid of small details and compression artifacts. Then there's the smooth corners slider, which will round the corners of the vectors, and the optimize slider, which will try to reduce the amount of vector nodes. You definitely need to spend a good amount of time to learn how to use the tracer, but it can be worth it, since I would say it is the most capable free image tracer out there. Though the tracing process can become pretty slow when using it with excessive settings, Inkscape is very stable and rarely crashes. To make the image tracing a bit easier to use, I found it helpful to open the image tracer in a separate panel and resizing it to have a bigger preview. I also recommend having the layer panel opened to hide and select the image you're tracing, because I sometimes experienced the created vectors having big gaps, which I didn't notice because the image was still underneath the vectors and covered them up. I also increased the amount of CPU threads and the limit for the cache to get a slightly better performance. So the best free image tracer is the one in Inkscape. It's just not easy to use. And that's all. Submarine to my channel. Bye.